Hi guys, welcome to HADAL TV. Today we have a special guest, WAYNE Richardson.
Hey.
WAYNE, how are you, sir?
I'm good, yeah. Happy to be here and finally.
It's been a while.
It's been a while, yeah.
Obviously, we've been trying to arrange this for a little while. For obviously, Ahmed is here as well.
I'm here today, and obviously, and you are?
I'm Assad.
Yep.
For those who don't know us.
Yep.
So WAYNE, obviously, we've been trying to meet WAYNE for a little while now. So finally, we're here in his place of business. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
It looks amazing. I think it looks much better than last time when I was being here. So.
Yeah, of course. It's, I sometimes just can't believe sometimes when I walk through the door, this place, you know what I mean? It just, you get, when you're around Olympians, it's just unreal, from humble beginnings to being in places like this as well. And it's changed from like the last time when you came in, Assad, because we had the running track right through.
Yeah.
And they have gone now with Taekwondo, and we'll probably come to that later on in terms of like, we're talking about why football being based here and it's GB Taekwondo and stuff.
Yeah.
And they wanted to try and use it kind of like have a kind of like mixed martial arts UFC theme as well, because like obviously UFC but there's not really much money in terms of Taekwondo unless you're like one of the top 4 or top 5. But like here, it's we have so many different athletes and different people that come to the centre, and we've been based here for probably about 10, 11 years now. So every day I just can't believe it.
That's amazing. But I mean, just before we dive into like why we're here and what we're doing, I would love to know a little bit about the background of Mr. WAYNE Richardson.
Yeah.
Who you are, where you've grown up. What inspired all of this?
It's funny because I had to do a eulogy only probably about 3 months ago of a guy who kind of gave me the idea. At the time, it was just like very much like a bit of a pipe dream. And you know that everyone at the time wants to play football. Everyone wants to be a footballer. Everyone wants to play football. And even though I played football, I always wanted to try and aspire to be involved in some form of like management, stroke, sports science, kind of like team environment, backroom environment. And I remember what I used to do is most of the time when I started my internship at Manchester City, I used to work at Man City at Platt Lane.
Yeah.
And I had this vision every time I used to walk from school of seeing the team train. Man City used to train there as well, the academy. And I used to go in to the office and say, I want to play football. Yeah. And mine was, I want to be involved in coaching. And the guy said, when you leave school, make sure you come back and, given this makeshift CV, and it was like very much like the things that I wanted to do when I left school. So I used to walk past Platt Lane all the time, take the long way round, and then go back towards the Parkway. And I remember when I was running, getting my internship after being at university, and speaking to 3 guys at the time at Moorside Youth Centre, which is now the Powerhouse.
Yes.
Yeah.
And one of the guys, one was a guy called Billy Hughes, well known in the community. Another guy called Mikey Williams, who was a ticket tout, and another guy called Mike McKenzie, who was quite big in the non-league game. And I remember Billy calling me over, and it was like these guys, you had to very much like stand to attention when you seen them, because they were like they were the main guys that everyone came through in terms of football if you wanted to be a football. And I remember Mikey Williams and Mike McKenzie saying to me, we've got an idea we're seeing all these players who are getting released. Yeah. There's no, and especially like the opportunities from where we were very, very little, we were very limited. Yeah. So he said to me, I've got this idea of when players get released, having a support mechanism for players, whether that might be mental health, it could be training, it could be getting them to clubs, getting them prepared, making sure that they're in the right, making sure they've got money in the pocket. And even though they had things like the PFA, these things were unheard of. And I think, guys, that stayed in my head for about 35 years. And it's only now, at that point now, where this has become a reality. And I always said I had this mindset in my head that I wanted to have a place where players, no matter what the ability was, whether it was men, women, boys or girls, from grassroots right up to professional, where they could come and not only train, but you're talking mental health, you're talking about relationship management, you're talking about when they get released, you're talking about all the things that are not kind of applicable to the normal kind of person right below. So what support mechanism that could you put in place? And that was always my vision to then do that. It came to reality after the 34 years, after meeting my partner. Wow. And my partner, she said to me, I went for an interview at Portsmouth Football Club. And when I got back, I didn't get the job because obviously they went into receivership at that time. They had a guy called Avram Grant and Harry Redknapp. Yeah. And they said, I got the job, but they didn't have no money. so I just said, right, I came back and I remember being on the train and my partner rang me and she said to me, listen, I've got a really, really good idea. My partner's very business-minded. She worked in London, worked in Canary Wharf and stuff as well. And I remember her saying to me, I've got this idea, Richardson Sports. And I said, no.
Got to go on your own.
No,
yeah.
I'm not working for myself, you know, dealing with tax and sorting out your own books and getting on your own business in and getting everything. And guys, I totally dismissed it. I just said, you know what? No, this is rubbish. And she said, look, I've already got everything sorted. What we're going to do is we're going to go and pay this guy a visit. And this was at the time before we moved in here. It was at Sports City.
Okay.
And it was a guy called Paul Jones. Unfortunately, he's died now. And he came in and my partner Emma had produced this kind of like dossier of like what we could do around and what it could bring in terms of the city. And he said to me, I've never ever seen anything like this before. And this is testament to her, not me. Do you know what I mean?
Put the business plan
together.
Yeah,
so she put and you know, I was just all about getting players fit, training, all that kind of stuff.
Well, practical.
And she was more about the business side. And she said to me, Wayne, what happens is in business, most people usually work in the business but not enough time on it. We have to look further afield and then look at the new things and the new strategies and keep up to date with everything else. And I remember getting my first wage off an agent. And this guy, he paid me. I remember him paying me. And I went straight to Trafford Centre and spent it.
Is that when you went to go and see?
Was that with me?
I went to go see Azad. And, you know, I've got a massive collection of, obviously, Jordans and things like that. And I went straight to Trafford Centre and spent it. And when I got home, she said to me, where's the money? I said, it's my money, you know what I mean? I've earned it. I've done training for the agents and everything. And she said, no, Wayne, it's the business. Yeah. You have to. You get paid last. Everyone else gets paid before you. And I couldn't comprehend that.
It is strange, isn't it?
Yeah, of course, yeah. And we collided on a massive scale. But she was only trying to, look at the bigger picture and look at the brand. And it was mad because when that happened, and then I sat down and the realization then hit me. Yeah. And since then, since June 2010, when we were formed, we've had the best part of nearly 8,500 footballers that have come through us.
Wow. How many?
8,500.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah, so teams, individuals, going from grassroots right up to Premier League, Women's Super League as well.
And across various sports.
And no, it's football.
Oh, just football?
Yeah, so I would say that probably 80% of the business is very much like football. Everyone will come in with very much like their own ethos. And one of the biggest things, especially now, is parents. Yeah. Parents being their performance managers. They're either agents, they're either trainers, they're either coaches, they know everything. Parents know everything. But it's the cost of obviously getting it wrong. So we've had to do so much relationship management, moving forward. And since then, it's gone from strength to strength, So it's been a journey. It's been hard. It's been difficult, but it's been rewarding as well.
Yeah, definitely.
That's one thing you've said, relationship management. Someone like me who's not in this field, like what does that entail? Like when you say relationship management?
Speaking with people on a regular basis. We feel that half of the battle. Say, for instance, I have a program where I bring students in. And it gives them an opportunity to work in a real life setting. We have an opportunity to bring in in a real life setting, and there's a lot of university graduates, but not enough jobs. So the idea would be to try and help these students when we're coming through, and for them to do case studies or do any form of training or anything like that, it's not a problem. But when they then have to speak to people, it then becomes a completely different thing, because it's something that they are not trained for.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And which they should have, because the amount of graduates that are coming out of university. So we'll spend that time either speaking with stakeholders, speaking with the bosses here, speaking with parents, speaking with players, speaking with agents, different people as well. And it's something that I've had to go back to either university or go online or do a podcast or something, or speak to people and try and find out what can I do to improve. So when people come in, it's like, how am I going to deal with this? You know, and we've dealt with agents who, a particular agent, a guy called Mino Raiola, he's dead now.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time when I actually sat down with him, I got imposter syndrome. Because I've never been in this position. It was just
He was a very tough guy, wasn't he?
Yeah, Wayne, you know, you train people, that's fine. Yeah. But this guy was like, you're talking about probably about £2 billion worth of transfers gone through this guy's hands.
Yeah, remember, he had Lukaku, Paul Pogba, he had everyone, especially everyone in Italy.
Balotelli,
Balotelli.
Donnarumma. And I remember him sitting down with him, and I felt very intimidated. I started to sweat. And I remember him saying to me, we've heard all about you, can you help us? And I'm just thinking, I just watched this guy on Sky Sports News. Yeah. And all of a sudden I'm sat down with him, talking and asking me for help. Yeah. And that was a turning point. So I've just thought, well, rather than just working on stuff here, which is quite easy, it was more about how I can then build relationships, how I can speak to people. And if I'm in a setting, you know, once you get into that setting, it's like, right, okay, you know how to deal with people, you know how to talk to them, you have to wear so many different hats, you know what I mean? You have to adjust accordingly as well, and then kind of gauge where they're at to as well, and then be more business-like.
So in terms of like what you do here in this facility, what is the day-to-day like for you?
Obviously, like from like our timetable, we have a lot of players that will come in who are either free agents, returning back from injury. So practically most of the time you're finding free agents or players that want to come in and then do a form of extra work as well. That's kind of taken up by the morning as well. It could be testing. So we work out of here and another place called the Manchester Institute of Performance. So we have a lot of practitioners there that we then can call upon if we need to. Yeah. And then in the evening, it's very much like academy players who are then brought in by the parents as well, who want to try and look at their performance, things that have been given back from the academy as well, things that they need to be working on. The issue that you then have with that is then the relationships that you have with the clubs. So you then have to then speak to them accordingly as well, you know, making sure that we're not overloading the player, we're not doing anything wrong, it's not kind of like in their programme, because ultimately the club then becomes the byproduct. But the issue that you then have is like the communication. The parents and other people, agents, want to see their product improve. And the clubs are like saying, well, no, we've already got this in the programme. So you're then having to then make calls, you're then having to network, you're then having to speak to people as well. So you're kind of like overseeing the whole kind of like very much like programme. Strength and conditioning programme, so we're coming up to our busiest time of the year in terms of like the off-season programme. Yeah. So a lot of players will then get sent in with their off-season programmes. Most of them will spend most of the time in either Dubai, Marbella or wherever it is. And then the last 2 weeks and, you know, but a lot of players now know that they are like 24/7 athletes. Yeah. So
that's wild, isn't it? Things change.
Yeah, of course, how it just changes.
Like pre-season finished, everyone just like holiday until...
Yeah, of course, So they're looking, there's places like Dubai, Mykonos, Los Angeles, places where they're going to now as well, where they can get this. And we just basically advise them, if you're going to go out in hot weather, then maybe look at doing some form of altitude work. Yeah. You know what I mean? Recovery, you know, speak to a nutritionist as well, because you're going to go out there, you're going to be eating a lot more. And it's become very much like a citizen advice bureau. Yeah, okay. Do you know what I mean? So we offer, it's very much like impartial advice. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? We never fight against clubs, we never fight against agents or anything like that. We always offer an alternative. And if we don't know, we'll always find out. Yeah. You know, and I try not to upset anybody, but, you know, sometimes it's difficult.
I wanted to ask you about Mario Balotelli.
Yeah.
I think he was one of your first clients, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was, yeah. I mean...
So how did that come to be?
It's funny, the story about it was, I was on my way home from Sports City, and everyone was very much like glued to the TV, and I was coming out, and this guy said to me, who was one of the service guys at the centre, he said, "Wayne, have you seen this?" And I said, "What is it?" And he said, "He's fighting with Mancini on the training ground." Yeah, so you've seen the clips of it. So it's fine. And I said, oh, you know, because I've been involved with football, I said, oh, that is the norm.
Just norm, yeah.
It's
People don't see that.
It's the norm. But I feel like, you know, Mancini was quite a tough guy. So that happened. And then I got a call from my missus, and she said to me, my daughter's gone to her grand's, so we can go out for some food in Leeds, where I live in Leeds. And I said, yeah, no problem, book the table. And then I'm just getting on the M62, and my friend calls me, who's a barber, my close friend, he's a barber. And what used to happen is on a Wednesday, Thursday, all the players used to come into his barbershop. So I used to sit there and listen to him once they get into the barber chair. So when you know you're in a barber chair, you will talk about anything.
Everything,
it's
anything
football,
goes.
Misses,
Politics, the whole lot.
you know, all that politics, whatever it is.
Everything goes in the community.
Yeah, so straight away, so I'm like, and then he's rang me and he said to me, Wayne, I've just received a phone call from a certain person, you need to go now. And I'm like, yeah, okay. I said, can't I go tomorrow, Richard? He said, no, Wayne, this is like my first one, you need to go. So I had to turn back the car, and I was heading towards Prestbury, Wilmslow. My missus calls me on the phone, where are you? Are you on your way? And I said, yeah, she's right, I'm getting a shower. So I'll leave the gate unlocked. So I'm turning the car, instead of going on the M62 towards Leeds, I'm going towards Wilmslow. Yeah. 8:34, I get there, and when I get outside, there's TV cameras and big satellite dishes, things like that outside this guy's house. And when I got there, it was, and my car at the time, it had Richardson Sports
on the side.
Yeah. So then my wife calls me again, and she said to me, where are you? And I said, I'm on my way. And she said, no, you're not. I'm watching your car on Sky Sports News as it's approaching the gate. And she said, oh, no, this is exciting because, you know, we were just looking to gun for that one person who could catapult us. And when I drove the car in, the girl came out and she said, is your name Wayne? I said, yeah, I'll take you through. And that was the first time when I came into the room, I seen Mario Balotelli, Mino Raiola, and his other advisor. And they were saying he's on the verge of obviously moving to AC Milan. But we've got 3 weeks. Mancini doesn't want him on the training ground. So this was the first point of like seeing an independent practitioner like myself as a go-between, as a, like very much to bridge the gap between them as well, and then to report back to them and vice versa. And that was my first kind of career-defining moment. Okay. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And it was like, but I used to do most of the stuff at his house. And this guy's house was very much like, it was like a, how can I put it? It was like a youth club. Okay. His house was like a youth club. He just welcomed everybody. He was one of them guys, they just welcomed everybody. He had everybody in there. He had from like the guys who were boohoo.com, the Kamanis, he had everybody in there. There was loads of people. And he said to me, I've ordered food for after training. So he used to go to a place called Wings. Do you remember Wings? It's like a Chinese restaurant, and then San Carlo. Yeah. But he used to order the food in. He used to just get the food. And it was just like long table, loads of food. We finished training, but he had a load of friends from like Inter Milan. So I used to help them with their injuries. Then he used to go training. Then I used to go with him to Carrington where it was empty, go back to his house, do all his stretching, do all his flexibility stuff as well, and his moments. And then it then became like having a relationship with him, and then he moved to AC Milan. But he was a really, really good athlete. He was a really good athlete.
He was actually a good guy as well.
Yeah,
I think
of course
he had a bad rap in England.
Yeah, of course. He was a really good guy. He was dead respectful. He did everything that he was asked of him. And you only see that when you actually work with that person on one-to-one. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And it wasn't as big as like now how social media was. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? But I was quite fortunate. That was like my first like main guy that I worked with. Yeah,
I think the last time you've invited me to come and work out with you, I think it was in the City Gym. Yeah. And I think at that time, United just signed a new striker, the Nigerian striker. Yeah. You were like working with him. Yeah. No one actually has seen him yet. Yeah. You know, what was his name?
Igalo. Yeah, Igalo.
I always mess his name up.
Yeah.
You were like working with him. I think this is before he even kicked the ball. I think United just signed him. Yeah. And he was working with you first, wasn't he?
Yeah, it was funny because when the agent contacted me, it was like, I was watching it leading up to, there was rumours leading up to the January transfer window. And this is pre-COVID. Yeah. And leading up to it, and I said, I think United are going to sign Igalo. My wife said, I think they're going to sign him. So the agent, I knew him, and they were trying to engineer the deal from China. And then I remember the deal being done on a Friday, 10:59, right? Just 1 minute before transfer deadline day. And then getting a call at 12:30. Can you set up a training camp for him? He's going to be with you for the next 3 weeks. United were then going Marbella then. So there was kind of like bits of restrictions in place, but not any form of lockdown at the time. And I remember him coming in. And I remember the whole Olympic team, because remember the Olympics got cancelled and everything as well.
Yeah.
And the whole Olympic team being here. And we then get calls from BBC Radio 5 Live, Sky Sports News, The Telegraph, Sunday Supplement, all these big like news outlets. And they said, we want to do you an interview. So we said no to all of them. I think I did one, which was a guy called Mike McGrath, who runs The Telegraph, and he's been on Sky Sports News in terms of the Sunday Supplement. And most of the interviews were like, wasn't about Igalo and me training, it was about coronavirus. So the first ones, it was very much like, he's coming here to train, he's training alongside Olympians. Then all of a sudden, he's had to stay away from Carrington because he's going to infect the whole United team, and he's brought the coronavirus back from China.
Yeah, there was a lot of that one.
So it was honestly, it was mad.
Chaos.
And then we had like guys turning up, UPS and DPD drivers, but they were actually press people.
Oh.
This guy's here trying to take pictures and everything, because he was the only main guy at the time who United had got, and it was very unheard of for United getting a player during the January transfer window, because Fergie always did that.
Because we were short on strikers as well.
That's right, yeah. And because the agent that I was working with had him at Watford. Yes. So he ends up coming in, and it was mental, because at the time I didn't get a call from their sports science department and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and we were in here, and they used to have TV screens here at the back here, and we were doing a meeting, a conference call with Solskjaer, head of fitness, and a woman called Karen Shotbot, who was like their communications manager. And she was then saying, well, who's ordered him to come in here? And it was like, she was basically like she was telling us off. And I was saying like, well, no, it's got anything to do with you, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to keep him fit. You guys were in Marbella, at the time. And, you know, it then became one of those. And when I then started working with him, and then I sent all the details and the documents over, I remember the fitness guy, the head of fitness, sending me an email saying to me, he seemed to be in fantastic shape. And at the time when we came out of lockdown, he then made his debut against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. And I knew then that my job was done.
Yeah, he had a good game as well.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
He was actually very aggressive that game.
Yeah, of course, yeah. And he was probably one of the better athletes. You know, he's a devout Christian, really, really focused and driven and stuff as well, know what he wants as well. And he was doing double sessions here.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I think he walked away for more money to come to United.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Well. And it was great for the agent. It was great for his family. It was great for people. And he was a good, really, really good guy to work with. You know, you get some really good athletes that just come in and they know what they want and what they want to do, and then you get others there where you feel like they throw them through the door because they feel, you know, my contract's going to end and stuff as well. I have to then start stepping up my fitness or my conditioning. But this guy was a real deal.
Jesse Lingard. Obviously, I think you've done a lot of work with him. Was it like when he left United, went to West Ham?
Yeah.
Or is it when he was going to South Korea? Or was it with Norwich?
Nottingham Forest. I mean, Nottingham Forest. Yeah, so United, he was out at United. And then when he went to Forest, when he would come back here. And then just pre-Korea as well, when he went out to Korea, when he went to play for Seoul. What a guy. A really, really great athlete, great mentality. I know that at times he got a lot of stick, but his work ethic was fantastic. You know, I've never seen a guy, you know, who's like always on time. Funny enough, you know, as much as he seems as a bit of a joker, I think sometimes it was always the other players around him as well, that he would be here waiting 10, 15 minutes before the session is due to start. His mindset was really, really good as well. And he would call me, say for instance, pre-season, to work with him as well. So I had a good 2.5 years with him as well. And it just got to a point where he never got settled, you know. He was flying here, going places, doing stuff as well. And then obviously there was a situation there. There was a point where he could have gone to Saudi, And then he ended up going to Nottingham Forest. He went for Nottingham Forest for a year. But the funny thing is, at Forest, I was working with 2 players there at Forest as well. So he used to come in. So the agent that I was working with, who had Igalo, had like 2 players there. So when they came in, Jesse would come in like in the afternoon, and they would just be finishing. And they would either come later on or in the morning. And training-wise, you know, bringing players in. I remember when funniest when he first came here, and there was a kid outside and from a local soccer school, a big devout United fan, and he said to me, "Who do you know football-wise?" And I said, I know a few people. He went, "You don't know anybody," because he's the guy. You know? And I said, "Okay." I said, "Tell you what, tomorrow I'm going to bring a player here. A player's going to come here and train on this pitch. If you be here at this time, then you can see." And then Jesse came here, and Jesse being him, you know, dead friendly, you know, signing autographs and everything. And I think at that time there must have been about 30 kids at the time. The Friday now, 1,000 people turn up.
Oh wow!
Just here, just at the pitch, just at the pitch outside. Yeah. And he then, from there, Ravel Morrison came.
What a talent that guy was.
Yeah. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And
lovely kid as well.
Yeah.
He just had a bad luck.
Yeah, then you had another guy called Roshan Williams, you know, centre back. You know, same again with him, great athlete, great person. And they all used to then come, and then it was obviously taught them Marcus was going to come, and then some players who played in the academy that came here as well, and he just gravitated, just brought loads of people here to train. And when he was coming off, he signed every single autograph. Yeah, do you know what I mean? He was just so down to earth, and you know, just how he was as a person, funny guy, comedian.
Yeah, he seemed like a character.
Yeah, but when it came to training, you know, and it's the things, guys, that people don't see. Yeah. It's a thing. Honestly, it's you know, they get a lot of stick for certain things that they then do. And
I honestly think that him getting stick was just stupid, because like, I think Solskjaer kind of messed him up really badly, because he was doing well at West Ham. Yeah. And obviously he called him back, because obviously West Ham had option to buy him, and they wanted to keep him. Yeah. He called him back and said obviously he's going to give him an opportunity to play for United. Yeah. And he never did.
Yeah. And that was probably the issue, and I think that probably made his mind up.
Yeah, because it will make anyone mind up.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and I think he knew. And then when I spoke with him a couple of times, he had a lot of other things going on as well, and he just said to me, "Look, you know, I want to come in like once, twice a week, you know, to keep my mind active and train and do whatever I need to do." Yeah. And it was, and when you got like players who are in the public eye, and then you think to yourself, these guys are speaking to me, you know, trusting. You know what I mean? I only, you know, I did that, and it's great to kind of like work with people like that as well on a day-to-day basis. You think, wow, you know, when you go home, and my missus always says to me, do you ever sometimes sit down and think to yourself, and you pinch yourself sometimes at like the position that you're in? And I'm going, yeah, you know, it's nice, you know what I mean? And he was a really, really good, respectful guy, you know what I mean? And I never had any issues with him at all.
Nice. I just want to go into talking a little bit more about community work, because I think that's where I kind of originally seen your face around, you know, with City and stuff. Outside of this, is there anything that you do on a grassroots level or with local organisations, like you mentioned Powerhouse?
Yeah, it's funny you should say that. I mean, I was disappointed probably about 3 years ago, and they were running at the time here a community group of like nearly 60 or 70 footballers that used to come in on a Wednesday and Friday, and I offered them very much like, it was like, right, there was a lot of academy players that had been released from there as well. There was a lot of them that were in various like kind of like gangs and fractions and things like that as well. And I said to them, right, listen, what I'm going to offer for you guys is an opportunity, like a bit of an NFL draft, to try and work out where you are in the pyramid in terms of like your fitness. So we'll do some jumps, we'll do some sprinting, we'll set everything up and everything. And the community group was like, you know, do we have to pay for this? I said, no, it's free of charge. Because I can then get the data and get everything on there as well, and then maybe then bring some different people in, and I'll speak with Nike and speak with a few people to then come in. And I remember we set it out to then do it on the Saturday. And I came here on the Saturday, and I think there was about 2 people that turned up. Oh wow! And I was completely devastated, because it was something that I always set out to then do, you know, to give back to like the local community and stuff as well. But when I was at Platt Lane, we set up a similar type of thing as well. And then unfortunately what they said to us, we couldn't run it. We couldn't do it. And this was like something that was like completely free of charge. But like now, what I'm doing now is, because the women's game is getting quite big in terms of like women's football. You're seeing players now riddled with injuries, i.e. ACLs. The biggest one is obviously the ACL injury. We have a company based here called Hawkins Dynamics who do all the what you call force decks. Some of them then do informal testing, jump testing, things like that as well. And what we're then putting out is to then get the normative data, is then allowing teams and players coming from grassroots level to be tested before they then get up to, because everyone's parents' dream is to try and get their player or their daughter or their son up to as far as they possibly can. And what I've done is I'm working on a bit of a project to bring grassroots teams in to give them an insight in terms of like what it's like from like an academy level.
And is there like a specific age group for this? Or
probably anything from like, I would say 13 to 18.
Okay.
13 to 18. So you've got that bit where they've got some form of kind of first stage of like what you call long-term athlete development. Any younger, you just want to let him just roam around and let him be, it's fun. When it gets to a point of like 13 onwards, you're then talking about more about being a bit more serious. They know what is involved. So we're trying to run that at this moment in time as well, but then offering an opportunity as well as parents to come in, and what happens if their son or daughter gets released from a club?
Yeah.
You know, what is the support out there? Because there's nothing out there at all. There's nothing. There's no support. There's probably individuals that are doing this, and it's something that I always wanted to then do in terms of like giving back as well. I mean, I'm trying to speak with a guy called Majid Dar.
Majid. Yes.
Yeah, of course, Wally Range. Yeah, of course, of course, and then talking to him, and then there's guys at Old Trafford Junior Football Club as well. You know, there's a guy called John Grant there who's doing some really good work, and then trying to get his team to come in and
they go into various academies and stuff.
Yeah, of course, playing against them as well, and it's just like right then, just preparing them for like obviously what's coming, giving them more of an insight as well. Nice. You know, and just offering that. So dealing with the elite is great, but you then see it more from a point where it needs to start from somewhere. But if we can give them that kind of support,
they would transition.
Transition, and it's my way of obviously then trying to give something back to the local community.
That's amazing, man. I love that.
Any funny stories of? Because you said earlier on, you've dealt with Harena.
Yeah.
When you said obviously you had no budget for you, which is funny.
It was strange, you know, like the interview. I mean, I got up when I worked at Man City at the academy. So I worked there on a placement. It was placement coming out of university, and a guy called Alex Gibson, who's now at Wigan, he rang me and said to me, "There's an opportunity to go down to Portsmouth and to work with their 18s and 21s." And the guy who's running the academy is or the setup is a guy called Paul Smalley. He said, "I've told him about you," and you know he's quite excited and stuff as well, because he said that we've done a lot of work at Platt Lane and stuff. So I said, right, okay. And at the time there was Sean Wright Phillips at the time. There's a guy called Lee Croft, Joey Barton. Joey Barton.
What was the other one? Was it Joe Barton? Was it Lee Bowyer? They was in the same team, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
He went to Leeds and something.
No. Joey, they played. Joey Barton played at. He played not only at City, he played at Newcastle as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And at the time, you're talking about. I can forget his name now. It'll come to me shortly when they had the fight on the pitch. Yeah. So they had the fight at the time, and they
crazy that time. Wasn't
of course. Yeah. You know, like
it was a bit of a madhouse.
Just to pass the ball.
Yeah.
And this guy. I prepared probably 2 or 3 months for this interview, and the interview was like obviously the next couple of months. And the strangest thing about this, when I went in, I spoke to this guy for like nearly 2 months. He was overseeing the interview, and I think I gave him a bit of a shock at the time when I got there, because he didn't realise I was black.
Oh wow!
And
it must be for a surprise.
And it was so funny because when I got to the door, this is like very much like it was like my career defining moment in terms of like getting into a Premier League club at the time. So when I got to the door, knocked through, they took me through, and it was the manager, the head of recruitment, and I think it was like medical. And when I got in, the guy, he looked at my CV. I remember him looking at my face, and then he looked at my CV, and then practically in a nutshell, half door, half open, half closed, he said to me, there's no job.
What was going through your mind at that moment?
He said to me that I still could do the interview. So I said, well, I'm here anyway. So I've got nothing to lose.
Yeah.
And when I talk to students and university students, I always tell them about this particular incident. So I remember going in, he said, right then, and I had a memory stick. And he said, right then, let's have a look at your interview. And just put the memory stick in the laptop. And I introduced myself. And I think the interview was about when you meet a footballer or an athlete or a young athlete for the first time, the process that you're going to take them through and what journey they're going to go through and who you're going to involve. Yeah. And he said to me, I remember him saying to me one time, he said, where do you get all this information from? I said, well, we have the internet. I said, are you aware of Harvard referencing, how it works? So I knew for a fact that now I'm being cocky now because I knew for a fact I got nothing to lose. I've got nothing to lose. I'm just like, right, okay then. And he just said to me, right, what are you going to do after so it's like through 12 months. What are you going to do after 12 months with that athlete? So these questions weren't on.
Not the original.
Not the original ones, because I've just gone, and so I answered them. And he said, well, okay, yeah, we'll get back to you. Well, you got a long trip home now, back to Manchester, haven't you?
Did you drive down, train?
I got the train.
Okay.
And at the time, I remember the snow being that bad. Oh. And I got down there, and it was like 3 trains. And I stayed in a hotel. And initially, the first bit, they cancelled the interview. I said, we can't do the interviews because people are struggling to get there. And I said, listen, I'm already here. Yeah. And I remember going back and going outside the ground at the time of Portsmouth ground and getting into a black cab. And I remember the guy in a black taxi, he turned around and said to me, where have you just been to? I said, I've just been for an interview there. And he gave me the whole history of Portsmouth Football Club in 10 minutes, going back to the station. And he said to me, the best thing that you can do is then start your own thing. And I remember getting home, as well as I told you before about my missus and everything. I remember going home, and 2 days later, I got a letter that we want to take you on. But the issue is that the club's just gone into receivership.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. Because remember, they had Sol Campbell, they had Yakubu. Yakubu was there. Remember Yakubu? Yeah. They had Yakubu, they had everybody there. And I remember him going into receivership. And I remember showing my missus, and my missus said to me, listen, you got to know your worth.
Yeah, obviously.
You've got to know your worth. So why give your skills away too cheaply and you're going to work for nothing? It would have been a different conversation if they were offering you a salary and everything else. Like this is like, right, this money's ring-fenced. I said, well, she said, no, it isn't. When people say money's ring-fenced, that there's a bit of a problem. So I just looked at it and just said, okay, no, I didn't accept it. And then Avram Grant came in, and it was like, right, we've got an opportunity because we've got a manager, we've got this, and they said it still doesn't solve my problem. So I sat down and then just thought, what am I going to do next? Yeah, the rest is history. Yeah.
And how long was it between when your missus originally, pitched the idea that you should do Richardson Sport to the day where you actually decided to do it?
Yeah.
Like, what was the gap?
We met.
How were you battling? How long were you?
We met. What happened was I was working for Manchester City Council on a project, and then I had to go and work. It was like a secondment, so I had to go to Wythenshawe, a place called the Lifestyle Centre, and work out there as well. And I was working on a project, like a sporting project, where partly because of like a pupil referral unit, and at the same time as like getting kids off the streets and everything into sporting activities. But I was already doing this at Platt Lane anyway, part time, and that was like my main job. And I remember going out just before my interview at Portsmouth, and initially when me and my missus first met, we met 2008, 2009. And she was going to America. And then when she came back, she just said, oh, I've kind of heard what you've got to say and everything. And I think we started, that was 2009, I went for the interview, and then 2010 we started Richardson Sports, June 2010. Nice. That's when initially when we started everything, but she had everything kind of very much like planned out. It wasn't, she had to take most of the credit because it wasn't me, it was her. Yeah. You know, and every time now, sometimes I'm like, yeah, and she went, don't forget who started you. And like, I was, you know, trying to, you know, do that as well. And it's like one hand behind your back and everything. I was like, wow. So it's one of them, yeah. So probably about a year.
Okay.
Yeah, about a year.
And how did you feel going into it? Were you anxious, nervous?
I was a bit. The strange thing about it was at Sports City at the time, I was with my ex-partner was an athlete. And we were together for like 17 years. And she's got an office there. Okay. And I said to my partner, I said, I'm not going there. My ex-wife's working there, plus two of my bridesmaids, ex-bridesmaids are there, plus all her best friends are there. What chance do I stand? And she was like this to me, Wayne, you have to see beyond that. 100%. And I'm just like, no, I'm not doing that. I was like, proper attitude. I'm not doing that. No, I'm not going there. And she went, well, it's either that or nothing at all. Yeah. I remember the first day, sitting down, my ex-wife walked past me. And we were like silent assassins. we were like silent assassins. We were like, you know, you're right, yeah. And, you know, obviously we got a daughter. Yeah. And we were just like this. And then one of her friends who runs like the city council, because they had a gym like a bit at the bottom bit of the track. She goes to reception and goes, I hear they say, what's he doing working here? And every little opportunity that they find to make my ride as uncomfortable as possible, it happened. Do you know what I mean? They would walk past me, they would like sit on it. If I came out of the track and they were all sitting around the table, they were quiet and they started talking. And it was like that for 5 years.
Oh, wow. 5 years.
Yeah, and at times I was sat down and Mrs. said to me, look, it'll only get better. Yeah. You know, things will happen and all that kind of stuff as well. And then at the time, me and my partner we just finished a divorce. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And we'd just been in court. We'd just been in court to try and sort everything out. And if you roll on now to 2025, we're like the best of friends. We're like the best of friends. We have a daughter who's 21. And it's remarkable. We all go out and eat.
That's blessings, man.
That's good.
Do you know what I mean? We all go out and eat, we talk. I can go around there, we can sit down, we can chat and everything like that as well. And she talks to me about her business and I talk to her about mine. Yeah. And it's strange. You know what I mean? It's, you know, like I've been there. So there were so many things that had happened and there were so many things that I had to deal with. Yeah. And it was like someone teaching me when you're going to have to go through a bit of turbulence.
A lot of lessons, as well.
Yeah, a lot of lessons as well. You know what I mean? You're going through that bit and you have to learn very, very quickly. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you have to keep your mouth shut. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And it's just about just
be patient,
be patient. Yeah, it's just more about patience.
Definitely, man. I mean, I've only got like one or two more questions for you. In terms of where you are right now, this seems like, you know, you're doing really well. But what does the future hold? Like, what's the bigger aspiration? Or
At 15, Assad came to 15th birthday party, and I got to a point where it was a crossroads and decided, what do I want to do next? What's the situation? And it's offering that very much like that complete backroom service, like what we do, helping university students. The next generation of obviously young athletes that are coming through as well. Going in doing lectures at universities, talking to their coaches, parents, putting on parents' evenings and stuff as well, so parents can come in and then talk and then kind of get a feel of it. Because I think that there's a lot of really good coaches out there, but not enough information. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Not enough information where parents can come and like dialogue. I think there's a guy at Platt Lane that's doing some stuff. I think it's under Reece Brown. Reece Brown's doing it. He's got a project there and he has the tendency to then bring in different kind of like guest speakers to make the difference to the parents, so the parents are aware of obviously what's going on. I feel that there's not enough of that going around as well. Yeah. And I think being in a world-class facility like this, I always get back to that point of like very much like humble beginnings. How did I start and what it took me to get there? Yeah. And how can I help the next person? Yeah. You know what I mean? Rather than thinking, well, this is all mine. And I said, no, because every other day I've got university students and I've got different people. How did you get there? Yeah. I've always wanted to do this. I didn't really want to take the plunge. And I just think to myself, time is probably one of the greatest things. And sometimes we're very, very precious with our time. And I feel that someone gave me their time, you know, in the position. And I've always wanted to try and give that back. And at some point now, I'm going to oversee a lot of the stuff. My daughter's training to be a sports lawyer, so at some point she'll decide what she's going to do with this. Two my kids will decide what they're going to do with this. But at the moment, we've got so many different things: pre-season breaks, off-season camps, you know, advice to parents, dealing with academy analysis as well. We do an analysis service as well, where parents, you know, can come in and watch the kids through HADAL or VO and things like that as well, and offering the whole complete back service, which is only available to the elite.
Just to add to that, I know that you, who you're working with currently right now. I know that you're working with Brandon Williams. Yeah. Obviously, like, he's been released from Manchester United, isn't he? Yeah. How tough is that? Like, to be honest with you, somebody that was actually been in a team and obviously he's been to Norwich and then back to United again, and now he's been released. That must be tough to pick that up.
I think it was, if I'm being honest, it was a shock. It was through his friend, a guy called Damani Mellor. Do you remember Damani Mellor? Do anyone know Damani Mellor? Damani Mellor played for, was it United? He's at Macclesfield under Robbie Savage now. Okay. He's just won a league into the league now in terms of Conference North. And Damani came in here. He was at Rochdale and then went on loan to Wickham. And he rang me and he said, "Can I come in and have a chat with you and your assistant?" And I said, "Yeah, not a problem." And he came in and he said, "I'm really worried about my friend." And it was in the public domain about what was going on with him. But I didn't know it was that bad. And when he came in and seen us, I said to him, he came ready to train in the gym when the first time we made the appointment. And I said to him, "We're not going to train. We're going to have a chat. We're going to sit down and we're going to have a talk, and we're talking about the relationship management first, because we have to know what's going on first as well." And I remember sitting down with him, and I said to him, "Where are you at the moment?" So obviously he was under Kieran McKenna at Ipswich, and Kieran obviously told him to go back to United because he had a lot of issues that were going on and stuff as well away from there as well, family, friends, things like that he had to personally deal with. Yeah. And I said to him, "Right." I said, "Where do you want to be?" And he said to me, "I want to get back playing." So I said, "Okay." I said, "2 things when you're in here." I said, there's a couple of things actually, but I said to him, a couple of things. I don't want any of your friends in here. Yeah. I don't want any social media. Yeah. I don't want any of your friends. And if I hear anything else, you're out. That's it. We're done. Mm-hmm. And he respected that. And I then started to find out a bit more about the case and what happened and everything. And I remember his dad on a Sunday, I was trying to get in contact with his dad. He said, "Will you let me know? Can you refer it back to my dad and just tell him what's going on and stuff as well?" And it comes down to communication. And I remember this guy, his dad Paul, ringing him on a Sunday. And he cried for 20 minutes on the phone and said, "I just want my son back." Not about football, just, you know, because what he was doing basically mimics like he had a stroke. Wow. And I said to him, "We have to get some secondary help here. Yeah. We have to." And we enlisted probably some of the best consultants in the country that are based out of the Institute of Performance. Mm-hmm. So I have to give them a lot of props. Dr. Chris Brammer and a guy called Lee Harrington, and Adam Townsley, who's my MSc student as well, who's done a lot of really, really good work, and then I just overseed it. And these guys were integral in terms of like what he needed to do and how he was going through the process. And we had to teach him how to walk again. Yeah. Basic steps, getting him strong, it was like dealing with a stroke victim, because I don't know if you know anything about about nitric oxide. So nitric oxide very much it's like poison.
Yeah.
And what you then need to do for that to replace to get that get vitamins is using vitamin B12 to get it back into your system. So we had to then exceed the dose in terms of vitamin B12 jabs, and then come in, and it was just basic things like getting down the stairs, walking, quality of life.
Yeah.
Dealing with quality of life, and this is and this is very much like in the public domain. So it's not anything that I'm hiding from him. So he knows, and testament to him, he has come in and put the work in, and he's done well with it as well, with a view of looking at getting to a club during pre-season. It's been nearly 12 months.
Yeah.
But it's 12 months that he's lost of his football career.
Yeah.
But just to get back to that point, and obviously I've liaised with a couple of people who used to be at United before they left, before the new takeover, and I've liaised with them. And it was probably to date one of the most serious cases that I've ever had to deal with, apart from another person who committed suicide. And I never, you think to yourself, I just come in and I train people, but not knowing that all the other things that you've got to deal with as well on a day-to-day basis, and you're thinking, wow, did I sign up for this? And Mrs. like, look at all the other things, be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
You're sitting down wanting to train footballers, and then all of a sudden now look what's going on, and and he leaves from here and he comes in, and I'm just like, wow, he's done well. He's done remarkably well. I can't vouch for the things that he's done in terms of like him as a person, and out there and what he should have done. But from a perspective of us, we've not put anything out there, and the reason why we're not putting anything out there because we're waiting when he then signs for a club, and then we'll release everything, and then do a case study.
Definitely.
That's the case study is like for footballers and the effects of nitric oxide and what it can do. I spoke to somebody who's in the Bundesliga who had the same thing, so I did an army investigating, and then there was one guy particularly, I think he was down south, who took it on a night out and ended up in a wheelchair. So now it's becoming a major problem. So it's not performance enhancing drug, but it's become a major problem in very much like in recreational party type stuff as well, especially when they have parties at home and things like that, or they're just, so he knows that now, and he knows what he has to do, and he's been given a second chance.
Yeah, but a lot of people do stuff like that without even thinking about it or knowing the consequences of what it will cost them.
Yeah.
And it's just sometimes it's just having fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like you see a lot of people doing it, and you're like, well, why are you doing this? But they don't know. Sometimes they don't know what they're doing. They just think it's everyone else is doing it.
Yeah, and I think sometimes what you got to remember is when players come in, a lot of players usually have the tendency to come in, and it's having people around them to support them. You know what I mean? And these are the things. I mean, when I do this talk in Birmingham in the next couple of months, it's not about just the player like getting to that point and the riches and everything like that. It's about the things and having the right people around them and everything like that. Yeah, the circle. And the circle is so important. It's so important to have good people around you as well. And unfortunately, there's some people out there that are just only out for their own benefit. And we see it with a lot of people that come through and stuff as well. So things have completely changed.
Definitely, man. Wayne, if you could just give us one last advice to any young person watching this that has been released, and maybe where anyone can find your details, any plugins, like the work that you do.
It's not over.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of players that come in who are released. Just to sum it up, when I started this, we had the launch at what was Nike store in Manchester on Market Street. And if you look at my website or on Instagram, there's a picture of me in the middle with 5 guys. And I always said that when players, every year that there's over 1,000, 2,000 players that get released from very much from academies.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
And 1% made the cut. Yeah. If that situation, if it was a school, we were talking about, it's failing. Yeah, and we find the majority of parents who come in who want to give their kids that edge, give them their best possible start. But we also have a lot of other kids that are released who are single parents, parents of single parents, and they're not as supported as anything else as well. And that's why I've always said to them, okay, there's opportunities. If you're like a pro or first year pro, I had a conversation with a guy who was a first year pro but then got released from a championship club. I said to him, are you aware that you're on the PFA subscription? And he said, I've been paying into a subscription, but I don't know what it's about. And I said to him, well, what's your agent doing? Yeah. Or have you spoke to the PFA? You've got a representative there who's in your region. Go and speak with him. Is there something else that you want to go into? So we've seen probably the best time during the lockdown about people then doing stuff, taking up a new career, right? Because we're always like, you know, parents always say, well, you've always got to have something to fall back on. You've always got to have something to do. And I would say, well, okay, what about then coaching? What about then going into a completely different career? And this guy, I remember him speaking to me about it, and he just said to me, I never know. I said, well, that's the whole point about going back in and finding out as much information as possible. There might be things out there that you might revisit. You might go to the States. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? But the problem that you have is with the States is that most of the young footballers, when they feel that they go out there, they feel that they're just playing football, not knowing that they have to study. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And a lot of them say, it's not for me. So I said, probably, okay, look at maybe lower leagues, you know, look at your plan. What's your plan moving forward as well? And I would say to people, it's not over. There's always opportunities. Yeah. There's always another choice. There's always another choice out there.
And the world is opening up now. It's getting smaller and smaller.
Yeah,
there's
of course.
Too many leagues now as well. Like you've got the Saudi league, you've got the China, you've got the rest of Europe.
Yeah,
it's opened up quite a lot.
But we have, to answer your question, we have guys from the Saudi league coming over because they feel that the Premier League's like streets paved with gold. Do you know what I mean? And the amount of money that's in the Saudi league at the moment, but they're coming over to probably just like with like the Championship or the Premier League. But these kids now, parents are sending them over. These are as young as 14.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Do you know what I mean? And looking at opportunities and looking at trials and looking at everything else as well. And it's amazing what you actually get into. And I would say to them, if you're then released from an academy, or it's not over, you know, you have to look at where you want to go. You still can play football. Yeah. You still can have an education. You still can, there's so many different things that you then can look at. And the problem that you also have as well is a lot of mental health. Yeah. Because depending on how they've been promised, what's been happening, what's been said to them, you know what I mean? And we're seeing a rise of very much like of mental health issues as well with like around young people and stuff. And it's the advice that's been given to them as well. Yeah. You know?
Definitely. And where can people find your details? Are you on the socials, website?
Yeah, so Instagram at Richardson Sport, Snapchat, Facebook as well. At Richardson Sport, we have also a page for parents of academy kids.
Nice.
Yeah. So, you know, asking questions, like a bit of a brief where we can then fire questions and
like
stuff
a forum
as well.
Kind of.
Yeah, my son's been released, or needs to work on his speed, or needs to work on different things, you know, different topics. It doesn't have to be like performance related. It could be about anything else as well. Yeah. And it's just offering that service. So, you know, feel free to go on to like Instagram, where, you know, most of the time where most of the work's been done, but yeah, Facebook as well.
Definitely. Again, for those who've made it this far, just make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, and check out Wayne Richardson. Any comments, any final words for us?
No, thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
The pleasure's ours.
Yeah,
the pleasure's ours. Thank you.
Wayne, Asad, Ahmed, we'll catch you on the next one.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.